Hey, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining. Fett263 presents Fun with Saber Effects for Proffieboard. So I have a specific effect style I was going to show tonight, but if anybody has any questions, you can put them in the chat. If there's time, I'll try to cover them. But I've gotten, I've seen some posts. I've gotten more requests, and questions about EffectSequence, which was actually it's a style that came out with OS 5, but it hasn't been added to the style editor yet. So I think maybe some people kind of don't understand how to use it. But it's actually a really simple style, but it also is a really gives you like opens so many doors and makes so much possible that even the library's only really scratched the surface with it, just because it's really whatever you want it to be. So it's going to kind of show how you can kind of a workaround to preview it in the editor. It doesn't actually run in editor yet. Frederick will get the editor updated with OS 5. And then, so you can, I'll kind of show a way to play with it in editor, but it's a really simple syntax that you can include anywhere. So I'm going to give everybody a couple minutes because hopefully we get a few more people in. I see a couple of chat is actually started. Hey, Cooper's Productions. Cool, yeah. First, if it's your first Profi, real exciting. Hey, Captain Finesser. So a minute or two, I'll probably do the little demo explanation, and then we'll start talking some code. But it's actually pretty simple, so don't get too worried. If you are joining and you haven't seen any of the previous shows, or you're not really familiar with style editor, you're not familiar with using Profi or styling Profi, don't worry. I'm going to try to explain it, but there is obviously a little bit of a learning that you would have had to happen before you get to this point, but try to make it as easy as possible. Hey, Megtooth, glad you can make it. Double A Battery, Rodney, thanks for joining. So I did post earlier kind of a little sneak peek video, kind of like a teaser of what I was going to show tonight. So I'm going to start with, actually I have two kind of quick demos, more just to explain what EffectSequence is doing, and then we can show the code of it, and then maybe answer some questions. Let's see. Oh, a bunch of people joining in. If I miss you in the chat, it's not on purpose. The chat's off on this side, and I'm going to be here and also doing the demo in a second. But I see Whitelaw. Hey, Kim, thanks for joining. So let me get the demo set up. Actually, let's see. Switch to. All right. So give me 1 sec. Let me just get the Saber turned up, and hopefully everybody still hears me. I can't see the chat when I move to this side. So if I miss you, I'll catch back up. So anybody who joins a little later, I'll just have them get in mind to kind of watch this part. All right, let's see. Is this visible on camera? Looks okay. Cool. All right, so for tonight, like I said in the intro and also in the little teaser, I'm going to talk about EffectSequence, which is a specific style. But what it essentially does is it lets you change the color, the style, the behavior of your anything you want. So basically any effect sequentially in sequence whenever you'd like. So this first one is a very simple demo, but what it is I've actually set up, and I'm going to show you the code, but I've set it up so that there's 3 blade colors. There's a red, a blue, and a green. But there's also, and those are run by EffectSequence for ignition, and then there's also an EffectSequence for ignition on the actual ignition effect. And what I did was I sped up each one of those. So I'm going to do 3 ignitions. This is the exact same preset, but each ignition is actually going to step through those different styles and colors. So you're going to see the first one will be kind of a slower ignition and retraction with a red. Pretty simple, nothing fancy there. But then I'll retract. So that was my first ignition. So now my next ignition on the exact same style, it's going to do a blue, but it's going to be a little bit faster. So, and that's because of how we set the sequence up. And then the third one is going to be a green, and it's going to be a really fast ignition and a really fast retraction. So that's almost instantaneous. And then this was just a quick demo. So now if I do it a 4th time, the sequence only contained 3 items. It goes back to the beginning of the list, and we'll go back to red. And this is just to kind of show. So the EffectSequence runs every time you do whatever effect it is. And it doesn't have to be ignition. It could be blast, it could be preon, clash, lockup. Any effect that you're going to build a style for you can build a sequence around and actually have that change each time. And when you see the code, you'll see kind of how it gets all set up. But let me do the one that I did in the demo and give this one an explanation.
Select preset.
Oops, I went too far. I don't think. Let me make sure this is the right one. I think I went to the second style. So that's the faulty ignition. Yeah, I went to the second style. I went too far on my rotation.
Select preset.
Nope.
Select preset.
There we go. All right, so this one, like I showed in the demo, if you missed it, and this might be new to you, but the way this one is set up is I've got the faulty ignition pre-on set up, and then I have an effect sequence set up on the actual base blade. So it's going to start off with a basically almost a static. It's an audio flicker, but the hum on here doesn't do a lot, so it's going to be kind of a flat ignition. So we'll go through that. Peek at the chat. So it almost does no. In person, there's a little bit of a flicker, but the camera doesn't quite even pick it up. All right, so that was my first ignition. So now the idea here is every time I'm igniting the blade, I'm kind of overloading that crystal. I'm overloading that saber. So now the next time I do the ignition, it's actually going to get a little bit of a pulse to it. So now there's a little pulse that's going to run up this. And it can be any style. I just kind of picked 5 styles that kind of went in succession with how crazy they were getting. All right, so now the next time I ignite, now I'm going to get a little bit unstable. So now I've got an unstable effect. And now this time, it's going to be a fast pulse with an unstable. And then the final time we just go all out crazy on it. So now this is a fast unstable with a pulse, and then it also has a white flash that runs up it. So now that's basically been the sequence. So the idea is the style is designed so that every time you ignite that blade, you're actually kind of, it's almost breaking internally, and you're getting this more and more erratic behavior. And now I'm going to go back around, and because there was only 5 in there, this will go back to regular, but I'm going to show a second application of the effect sequence. It actually is in the library that people have used. They just may not have been aware. So we'll go through this. So now there's another effect sequence, and this is in the enhancement screen of the library where you can choose the multi-blast, and there's 1 and 2. And what that is it's actually an effect sequence on the blast effect. So each time you do the blast effect, it's actually a little bit different. And that's meant to, I've shown that one actually, it's been around for pretty much since OS 5 launched. But that application lets you have the same effect, but have it do different things each time. So when I do my blast, the first one's kind of a short blast wave. The next one's a localized blast. The next one's a bigger blast wave. The next one's another short one. And then the next one's localized. And it'll just keep going through. So that way each time you deflect the blast, it gets completely different effects. And this is, I think there's only 3 or 4 in here. You can actually add as many as you wanted to. But that's yet another application. So I'm going to turn this down, switch back over now, and start showing some of the code and explaining it, and I'll catch up with the chat. Oh, you know what? Yeah, I'll show that later. I've got one more thing to show, but we'll do that after this explanation, just to avoid extra confusion. Save the battery. All right, hopefully you all heard that, otherwise I just wasted a whole lot of time. Okay. That, we don't need me, that. Cool. All right, let me chat. All right, let me catch up with the chat. Thanks everybody for joining. Let's see, we've got Kim, Tri-Laser. Hey Max, you made it. Chet Osborne's here. You know I'm thinking. And White Law. So let's talk about the use of effect sequence. So let's first, I'm going to show some of the, actually I'm going to show you how kind of it works in the code, but then I'm going to show you a way to work around that into the editor. So this is the first style that I showed. And actually, let's put this somewhere that it's a little easier to show everybody. Is that too small? Let me see if I can zoom a little. All right, so effect sequence is basically, it's a very simple style. So the actual syntax on it is just effect sequence followed by the effect. So in this case here, this is the effect ignition. And then you basically get to add a list of what you want. So that first one, the very first early demo, was just a red, blue, green. All right, so I just put those sequences in, and you can have as many as you want. So you can actually, I could have gone through every color so that every time I ignite the blade, it's a different color. Same thing, you could actually have it so you can run an effect sequence in your blast so that every time you do a blast, it's a different color. You can have it, pretty much any effect, any style you want. And then the second effect sequence we built is what changes out the speed of the ignition. And so this one here, again, it's just an effect sequence on ignition. So, and the effect is telling it when to switch. So it's going to go through the list every time that actual effect occurs. And then I just built out 3 different in-out TRL layers, one with a 500 for the ignition and retraction, one with a 300 for ignition and retraction, and one with a 100 for ignition and retraction. And if you're not familiar with the format for the transitions, TR wipe is what does from the hilt up, and wipe in is from the tip down, and that's what essentially creates your ignition running up the blade and retraction running down the blade. But you could do it on any of them. You could also, if you wanted to, you could have it so that every time you do the ignition, you actually have a different transition. So you can build up a list of in-out TRLs where you have the first time you ignite it, it does a wipe up. The second time you ignite it, it does a wipe down. The third time you ignite it, it does the color cycle. The fourth time you ignite it, does maybe from the center out. So you can just kind of build all of those right in, and it's really no limit. I chose 3 here just because for a quick demo. But let me show you how we can actually get this. If you wanted to play with it, and this goes for any of these effect sequences until the editor has been updated, you can still play with these in the editor. You just have to so what we're going to do is we're going to swap out the effect sequence for a color sequence, which is actually what this was originally based out of. So I'm going to go into this editor. I'm going to paste it. And what happens when you drop effect sequence, just for all those who are going to maybe do this and make this mistake, right? If I go to submit this, it's going to tell me unknown identifier effect sequence. That's because oops, where's my mouse messed up? That's because this is not in the editor yet. But if you want to see what your sequence is going to look like, we're going to just swap out effect for color, and we're going to swap out the effect ignition or whatever effect it is, and just put a timing on that. And so color sequence is the same thing, except it's just timed. So let's do like a 2000. Submit that, and now you can see what your sequence is going to look like. The difference being, though, this is a timed effect. So this will just always run. Every 2000 milliseconds, it's going to swap to the next color and keep going in a circle. Effect sequence doesn't change until you do that effect. And for those of you who don't know all the effects, most will, but there's a list of effects here. So none does ignore, but so you can have effect sequence run on your clash, you can have it run on your blast, you can have it run on force, stab. Boot would be you could do it on boot technically each time you turn this. No, boot will reset the list. I take that back. Boot would not work. Lockup and begin and end, drag, begin and end, pre-on obviously, ignition obviously, retraction obviously. Change, that's color change. It would depend how you build that style. So that one's a question mark based on your style. New font is when you change fonts. So if you had an off behavior, you could do the same thing. And then stun, fire, clip, and those are blaster effects. So unless you have a blaster, but so any of these effects would be able to run effect sequence. Now, the second style I built, I'm going to kind of show you how I built it, and I'm going to kind of give you some. Now, I'm going to try to take this piece by piece just so that people can replicate it. So the thing about effect sequence that I think I wanted to mostly show is that you know, there's a lot of styles in my library. There's a lot of styles that people build and everything. If you wanted something even more unique, even more custom, this kind of gives you another avenue to do that. So what I did, and I'm going to just kind of replicate it, is I'm going to go grab a couple of styles that I want to do. So I originally grabbed an audio flicker. Now I'm not going to add a bunch of stuff on it. I just want to grab this. So I'm going to do get style. And I'm going to paste that. Let's get a couple new lines here. All right, so, and this looks like a lot if you've never seen the code, but this is your style code. But I'm going to show you how to get an effect sequence just dropped in on your own. So now let's go grab, so what we're looking for in here is this beginning part. So we've got, this was the audio flicker, and then the base styles for almost everything out of the library are going to be on your top lines. And depending on what you've chosen, you're going to start getting a bunch of transition effects, etc. in there. So in this case here, this lockup TRL is going to be the beginning point of everything other than the base style. So I just want, for now, I'm just going to grab the base style. And I'm going to show you why we're doing this. I'm going to separate all this other stuff out for now. And now I'm going to go do a second line, and I'm going to go pick a second style. So, and you can build your own styles. I'm just using the library because it's already here. It makes it easy. So I'm going to grab this, the second sister, and you can even mix up your colors if you wanted, but I'm going to grab this one here. Let's grab that. And again, I'm not adding anything major to it, just to, you could add whatever you want in there, but I'm going to grab that. I'm going to put that as my second. And this time what I want to do, right, so there's my second starts here. So I'm going to find the end of that original style again, and we're looking for, in this case, it ends here. And actually, you know what, let me show you even better. I just thought of this, that I'd save us even more headaches, because for those of you who aren't used to reading all this code, there is actually an even easier way that I just thought of. Let's put it in editor. There's a style. This was what we were messing with. So if you don't pick if you don't pick like effect sequence or the on-demand power save or the on-demand battery, you can put the styles in here. If you grab something else, it wouldn't work. So what we're doing is we're starting very simple, and then obviously if you add some of the stuff that's not supported by editor, that'll be also hand edited. But let's paste this in, submit it, and here's a little trick to break these apart. If you click this after you submit it, if I click this box here, I can actually find my base layer, and you're just going to click the box, and that's just my base layer. And now I've got my base layer I want. I can just copy this. I'm going to put this, and we're putting it in the text document because we're going to slowly build this out. So this is the base layer here. So let's get this base layer separated. And we're going to put a second base layer. We're going to need commas and all that, but I'm going to cover that in a second. Then we're going to go, let's pick another style. So for the demo, I used my Kylo Unstable. So I'm going to get that code, get the style code. I'm going to go back into editor, delete all that. We're going to paste that in, submit, grab this base layer. On the playback, the emulator doesn't look as great. This looks much better in person, but let's grab this. And then we're going to go in here, and I see the chat's going. I'll catch up with the chat in a minute. And then we're going to paste a third style. And then I've got, grab two more. So we're going to go here. And then I did the unstable pulse was the next one. So I'm going to grab that. Get my style again. And the reason I'm not picking options is I'm not actually interested in any of that. I'm just interested in the base style. So it doesn't matter what I pick here. When you're finally done and ready to go, you can go back and pick the exact things you want. But then we're going to go to editor yet again. We'll pick everything. So you always want to get to the uppermost layer. We'll delete everything. I use keyboard shortcuts. That's why everything highlights. But it's Control-A selects everything. And then we'll paste, submit. Here's that base layer. We'll grab this. I'm going to put you here. And then the last one, we went with the Unleashed. That should be right there. And you can pick any of these styles. You could pick even more of, you're not really limited. So I picked 5 just because I put a cap on. You could put, 10 in there if you wanted. You can just kind of build out what you're wanting. And the order is what matters. So I'm building these in an order where it starts off very basic, gets a little bit of activity here, then it gets a little unstable, then it gets unstable with more activity, and then it gets just crazy. And that was the goal. Oops, I missed a step because I was talking. You got to go with the editor first. And this is just to make it easier. If you're already used to working just in text files, you don't even have to go through the editor. But I'm doing this as hopefully making it a little easier for everybody. So then we'll grab this base style. And what I'm doing is I'm pasting it in so that I can separate out the base style without having to read all the code. That's essentially what we're going to do. And then we're going to copy that. And that's what's going to go here. All right, so these right here, those are the 5 styles, the 5 base styles I just chose. And right now, this actually wouldn't work because I'm missing the other pieces. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap the effect sequence around that, which syntax is very straightforward. So effect sequence, what effect do I want to have jump through the items of this sequence? And that's, for this build, it was effect ignition. The effects are always all caps with an underscore between them if you're not familiar with that syntax. So that's that. So now this is the first style. Now I need to have a comma here. And if you go through this, if you've ever done any of the styles by hand, missing comma, missing bracket all the time. Like anytime you get a compiler, go back, it's most likely you forgot. I still forget commas every once in a while when I'm kind of copying and pasting stuff. So we're going to do it slowly. So I got my effect sequence. This is the opening of it. So this is your opening bracket to effect sequence right here. This is the effect that triggers it. Here's my first item that's going to come up. I'm going to put a comma. Here's my second item that's going to come in sequence. I'm going to put a comma. Here's my third item that's going to come in sequence, comma. Here's my fourth. Oh, I already got a comma there. Why would that have? I must have messed something up. I don't know if that should have a comma yet. Let me make sure we didn't miss something. Stripes, closing, we're good. Okay, that one I should have needed to add a comma. Now this is the 5th one, so we're not going to actually add a comma here. We have to close the effect sequence. So we're going to I'd put it on the new line just so you can tell that it's closed. So this closing bracket is the close of this effect sequence, and everything in between those two, now this is what the sequence is going to be. And then the comma is already here because I left it for the rest of the style. So if I wanted to just go with the rest of that base style, I could. Now if you want to go back and you want to pick a bunch of other stuff, like preons and stuff, I have to resubmit that. So I can actually go back and let's say like we wanted our faulty ignition preon. I'm going to come here, put that in. Let's put a power up effect. So we'll put the unstable white. That's the one that I used in the demo. That's the one. This one, so I get this question a lot. When you have the white effect that runs up the blade on ignition, it's a power up effect. 99.9% on my styles, and like Kyberphonics uses it a lot, are the power up unstable in white. So this is the option that is almost always run in videos that everybody likes. So that's the option there. But you can pick through everything you want. Now, just kind of a reminder, if you want these two, the multi-blast 1 and 2, those are the ones I showed that has different blast effects each time. This won't work in the editor. So those you'd have to do by hand. So I'll show you how to add them easily. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of go here, say I made all my choices. I'm going to get this style again. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into editor. Let's select the whole thing. Delete it. We're going to paste it. Submit. And this time we're going to click here. And we're going to ignore the top because we already have this built. So the first 2 lines I don't really need. So what I do need is from here, the lockup, down. So we'll go to the end here, and we'll copy that. And then we're going to go over here. Now I didn't use the copy button, so it's not going to add the style wraparound. So I'm separating this little guy out. And if you're not familiar, we'll cover this in a minute. But these are the close to the style PTR, which is for all styles. So now the new section we just grabbed is going to replace this because this was just from a different style. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to leave here. And then I need a comma. I'm going to paste. And now this has all, and this gets, because of the line breaks, it looks like a long amount of code. That's why the library has everything compressed, but it makes it harder to read. So now I've got my effect sequence built for effect ignition. I've got my 5 styles that'll rotate through. Whoops, too fast. That's here. This is the close of the effect sequence with a comma. Then this is the lockup. So these are your lockup. This is lightning block here, so you can just kind of tell by reading it. This is stab, this is the blast, so this is a single blast, this is clash, and then this is effect ignition again, but this is a power up, so this is using a transition effect, so it's not going to rotate. Now you could build an effect sequence on that too if you wanted, and then this is drag, you can tell by the name here, melt here, and then this is our ignition, in-out TRO, which is your ignition and retraction, and then this is going to be your preon that we just added, so that's your fault ignition preon. So, but at any rate, now I've got essentially my style starting here is built out, and I've just added the effect sequence without having it visible in the editor. Now, if I want to drop this in editor, say I want to double check this, all right? So you've done all this, you're not sure if you got all your commas, everything, we can grab this whole style again. And you got to make sure we get the beginning and end. We're going to copy it, and we can jump back into there, and we're going to swap it again for color sequence just to preview it. So let's go, actually we'll just open a new editor, just so I get that nice and ready. I've really been neglecting the chat, I do apologize. Let me get past this because I didn't want to lose my train of thought. All right, so now, effect sequence, right? I go hit submit, it's going to tell me an unknown identifier because this isn't in there yet. It will be though. Frederick's obviously working on a ton, but it will eventually be there, so this is kind of a in-between workaround. We're going to find effect sequence. And again, we're going to change this to a color sequence. You got to remember you're changing it to color sequence because it'll act differently if you actually use this exact style. And we're going to replace the effect ignition, which is telling it when to change, and we're just going to time it. And we'll just do 2000 milliseconds, and then I hit submit. Now it takes it. And now I can see my effects, and it's going to just run through the effects. Now, the color sequence timings. So any timed effects in Proffi that aren't based off of a transition effect or an effect sequence or a trigger, they're technically running all the time. So this will always be in a loop. What that means for you is if you used color sequence, which is a fine use, it could be at any point, at any time you ignite. Whereas the effect sequence only changes your to the next effect when you do that effect. So it's kind of it's based on you pushing a button or you doing some action. It swaps. Color sequence just says every 2000 milliseconds go to the next, which works great for certain things. But if you wanted to make it go in a specific order, like this one is designed to, that's where you need the effect sequence to come in. Now, the way timings work on Proffieboard is that 2000 milliseconds is every 2000 milliseconds from the time the board is turned on. So you put power to the board, it starts counting. So it has an internal clock. So 2000 milliseconds switches, 2000 milliseconds switches, 2000 milliseconds. Now the whole time your saber could have been sitting in your hand, could have been on your desk, could have just been on your hip. It's still running the same thing all the time. So then say it's at 1600 milliseconds after you ignited, you press the button, it's going to be on that part of the sequence, which is where you don't have the control over it. Effect sequence enables that control. So hopefully I didn't confuse too many people, but I was getting more and more questions about how to use effect sequence, and I wanted to kind of show it. It is literally identical to color sequence. The difference being instead of being timed, it's triggered by the effect. And instead of using, so if we just look in editor at color sequence itself, right here, So we go to styles. So if you want to understand it better, you can play with color sequence. And this is the timing factor. So effect sequence just switches the color out for an effect, and the trigger for, instead of being timed, is being the actual effect itself. But you can build a list like this and then swap it out. So I can build like a long list of colors, or you could do effects. So if I wanted to have an audio flicker, it takes colors and effects. So you could do like a red, orange audio flicker in there. Submit that. So now we're going to get, so you can see, and we'll stretch this out. So you can really build some unique stuff with these sequences. The difference is the effect sequence lets you have it be a controlled thing. So this is now going to take a lot longer to switch through. But while that's running, wow, I missed a lot of chats. I do apologize for everybody who joined in. Let me make sure I didn't miss any. Hey, Brian, thanks for joining. You guys who joined a while ago, I apologize for not recognizing. Jonathan, Kybertech, Trilaser, Bobby. Hopefully I didn't lose you all or bore you guys to death. Let's see what questions we've got. Let's see. So the amount of storage, that's a good question. It really depends on the style itself. So, and it also depends on the plugin. So if you're not on the V2 plugin yet, definitely get that, because that does a lot more optimization. But essentially, so say you have like one style that has an effect sequence in it, and you have 5 or 6 styles in that effect sequence, but then you have everything else be roughly the same. Then it's not going to take up nearly as much memory as if I had 5 different styles as different presets with very different things. So the way it optimizes, it looks for what's the same in each style, and it tries to reuse other styles on your board that do the same exact thing. So effect sequence, really, if you notice, like in this effect sequence, the blast, clash, lockup, ignition, retraction, power up effect, force, like all that stuff was all the same. And then, so really it was just dealing with only the 5, the audio flicker, the what was it, the second sister, unstable pulse, and then the unleashed. So it was really only dealing with those 5 styles, but the rest of the style was actually already there. So it wouldn't be considered anymore. Now, if you say you built a style that had, every time you do a blast, it changes. Every time you do a clash, it changes. Every time you do an ignition, it changes. Every time you do a force, it changes. Every time you do lightning block, every time you do lockup, you could build some really crazy stuff. That obviously is going to take up a lot more memory. But if you're just switching like 2 or 3 things with effect sequence, and they're actually pretty simple on their own, it's not going to be too bad. But everything's totally, like, it just depends what else is on the board already and what else you're doing in that particular style. But there is the V2 plugin has a lot of optimization. It'll save you a lot of space if you're not on it. Let's see. I got to catch up with some of these. Yeah, so yeah, I think this got answered, but yeah, the SD card is for storing your sounds. It doesn't have anything to do with styles. The styles are flashed to the board. I think somebody already replied that, but just to make sure. So you would put, when you're done with all of this, the next step is taking everything and putting it into your config. Let's see. Got the finesser. Yeah. Oh, I mean, the style editor is how I got my start. Like I said, the style editor is technically running OS 4. So there are pieces of OS 5 that are not represented here yet. You can't blame Frederick with everything he's working on for not getting a chance to update it yet. Plus, with OS 6 not so far out, there's probably a chance that he might actually be waiting for OS 6, because there's going to be a lot in OS 6 that has to get added, so it might just make more sense. I'm just guessing. I don't know specifically, but I do know he's aware that he just updated the beta to the live. But yeah, so effect sequence, which we're talking about tonight, and a few other things. The on-demand power save, which is effect power save, and on-demand battery level, which is effect battery level. They're not in here. If you grab them out of the library, drop them in, it'll just say it's an unknown identifier. Hey, Bobby, thanks for joining. So it looks like they were answering to Jonathan's original question. Yeah, all of your visual effects, the everything visual is run by the board. It's actually flashed to the board through Arduino. So your limitation there is the actual available memory on the board. Now there are a lot of ways to optimize the plugin I was just talking about, which actually already people sent out. I see that further down the chat. That's what I get for being behind. But also how you build the styles. So my library for OS 5 is pretty well optimized. There's actually more optimization coming in OS 6, which will, in some ways, it'll make the stuff a little more complicated, but at the same time, it'll actually give you some opportunities to kind of save even more. So there's always that. But yeah, I mean, you're just like anything. If you have a computer and your computer has this amount of memory, you can't keep adding more applications to it because you're going to run out. You could add an external drive in that theory, so maybe not the best analogy, but at any rate, there is a fixed amount of actual memory on the board. So if you have like a ton of crazy big styles, you might have to pick and choose. But the V2 plugin does a lot. I think it saves around 10% at least in a lot of my tests, even more depending on the styles themselves. Let's see. Actually, where was it? Kybertech. The V2 plugin, Frederick moved it to stable. So it was in beta for a little while. He moved it to stable, I want to say in February. It's been a little while. There's info on the TRA. Actually, we can, let's find it for everybody. There's my keyboard stopped working yet again. That's not, I can't get my keyboard to work. That's annoying. All right, we'll skip TRA for now. What's going on with this keyboard here? Now it works. It doesn't like the browser. Huh. Okay. I have a very temperamental keyboard for some reason. No, come on, react. Psst. Don't know why that is. There we go. TRA, here we go. Let's go to Professor Zorn. Plug in. It's going to be a little ways down, I think. Plugin is in here somewhere. Nope. Was it that long ago? I must have passed it. Oh, nope. That's not it. All right, it's in there, but rather than go on wasting all that time, let me catch back up with my chat. So I just answered that, Jonathan. The multi-blast is using EffectSequence, which isn't supported. The power save and the on-demand battery level are also not supported yet. That's the reason they don't work. They work fine, actually, in OS 5.7. Again, the editor doesn't support them yet. So let's see, Wesley. So change your font partway through the sequence. Or to restart the beginning of the sequence. So if you change presets, I think you mean, yeah, when you go to the next preset, it will restart your sequence. So the sequence is while that preset is active. There's probably, you could technically do a different approach if you needed it to hold. That would be different though from what EffectSequence is. Because EffectSequence basically loads when you choose your preset, it gets loaded and then it starts running when you do the actions. If you turn Saber off and came back, it's going to start at number 1 again. If you jump presets in terms of the way it works, that would also start it back at number 1. Let's see. So chat. So what it is, basically EffectSequence is really just changing stuff when you do something, but it lets you do it anywhere you want. So what I did in mine was I used I just changed the base layer, but you could do it on your Blast, on your Clash, everything in the same way. And like I said, it's just kind of something custom. Obviously, a real Saber that we're experienced with in the in the Canon universe doesn't necessarily happen that way. You do have like the dual phase, which is another approach. You can do that too. You can do the multi-phase where you just jump presets with the live switch. This is just kind of something unique, and it has a lot. That's part of the thing is it has so many other uses. So, and I think Brian, I don't know if I bored Brian to death or not, but Brian was on earlier. So Brian built out his portal style, and it goes from the I didn't play the game, but so the portal game where I guess you have a blast that opens these portals up and it changes from red, not from blue to orange, and all that. So he's using effect sequence in there with a lot of other stuff, so that every time you do your specific effect, I think it was blast, it's actually going to change the not only the blast itself but also the blade. So it goes blue shoots an orange blast, orange shoots a blue blast, and they keep flipping over each other. So it's just gives you these opportunities to create these really unique styles. I mean, styles are pretty straightforward. Like even the library with everything that's in there, it is actually pretty straightforward. It has an effect. There's the multi-phase one. There's the dual phase. There's the split blades. Like there's some mixes, but those are all just like the tip of the iceberg of what can be done. I just field questions. People want to do something and they're not sure how. That's why I wanted to kind of show effect sequence is just one piece of that puzzle. There's so many other things that as you get in and start playing with styles, that's where you really start to learn it. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, the Proffi. Yeah. So the Proffi plugin is when you're in. Oh, I don't have Arduino open. In Arduino, when you're in your boards manager, you change. You can change the plugin, and what that is it has it in there. So yeah, absolutely. That's what I was actually just building prior for everybody. So that is what we'll do is we'll bring it up on screen. I could actually, let me see, I don't know if I can paste this all in the chat. So I'll have to find out how to paste this. But yeah, this would be pretty similar to what I just built, I believe. But yeah, I can. Yeah, I think it doesn't like the brackets in chat, if I'm guessing correctly. So I can probably try to do that. Plus, chat's on a different computer from this right now. But I can get this out. But it's essentially what I just was walking through, where I just picked those 5 styles and I took that base layer out and I built this effect sequence on it. Description box, Megtooth says, Pastebin, Brian says, yeah, I can get that to everybody. Yeah, Pastebin would work. Let's do Pastebin. Now where to put it? Actually, let me grab the one off of my config so you guys get the exact one. This should be it. Of course, everything being editable, that should be it. Just make sure we didn't miss anybody. Got my clothes. I actually, when these just different than when these are all broken out like this, it actually makes it harder for me to read. I'm used to reading everything all squished together, but I guess most people like it broken out, so it makes it harder for me. But so here you go. So this would be it, and then let's get our create new paste. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put it where to put it. I'm not logged into Facebook here. I do it on the other computer. I will get it onto the post and I will put it in the description, but I have to do it on the computer that has the chat, not on the computer that has the demo, so it'll be after I'm done. But at any rate, I'll get that so everybody can mess with that one. Let me catch back up. But good suggestions, everybody. Let me see. Yeah, so yes, if you're on the original plugin, there is no issue with the plugins. The big change that came about with the V2 plugin is just how it optimizes the style. So like if you're if you've got, your however many styles and you are having no problem and you're not overrunning the flash memory, you're not getting that flash warning where you don't have enough room on the board, then the first plugin is perfectly fine. If you're finding that, you're running out of room or you want to add a new style and you don't want to trade something off, the V2 plugin does a better job optimizing the styles, so it gives you more space. Now, as the new OS comes out, OS 6, there's probably going to be more drive towards that V2 plugin because there's so much more coming. So obviously, as more features get added, as more really cool stuff gets added, it takes up more space. So that's where that V2 plugin is going to kind of come into play. But again, if you're running the V1 plugin, the original plugin, and you're able to upload everything to your board and you're not dealing with any memory issues, there's no reason you have to change. But as more and more stuff comes out, as we add more and more capabilities to the board, you're going to want to start optimizing a little bit more. Now, again, there's other ways to save memory. You can remove certain styles, like the POV style, I think is a memory hog, although I think Frederick cut that one down a little bit. But there's a lot of other ways. But the V2 plugin just does it for you. Yeah, it's through Arduino for the plugin. Yeah, I forget. I was trying to find it. It's on TRA. If you go to the Rebel, if you go to the TRA forum and just search V2 plugin, there's a whole thread on it that explains step by step on what to do and everything. And I think in the open source group, it was a little ways back, there was probably a post from Frederick as well. I just couldn't find it quick enough, and I didn't want to spend all the time trying to hunt and peck. But it's out there. But it's basically you just change the board manager where it points to get the new plugin. And Megtooth looks like he's answering you. So yeah, it's through Arduino though. And actually, all right. So I'm gonna hold this up on the screen because I want to get that. But I want to just show. And Megtooth's on, so I want to show Megtooth this. I've got a sneak peek of something. So, so tonight was very much about EffectSequence. Hopefully, you guys learned something. I do know I am working on edit mode. Edit mode is still very much in play. I've actually been working on a really big piece. It's close to the last piece. There's a couple other small pieces. You guys haven't seen anything yet, and I don't want to let the cat out of the bag about certain things, but it's still very much in the works. I've just been working on it, so I haven't had time to show anything, but there's a lot of stuff coming still. But I'm hopeful in the coming weeks to finish my part of edit mode, give that over to Frederick, and then I am not a trained programmer. I've asked a billion questions to Frederick, and he's answered a lot. I've bought a couple of books on C++ to kind of understand. And then I am a trial and error guy. Like I write something, if it doesn't work, I go and rewrite it. So when I'm finished with something, I give it over to Frederick for review, and then he's going to actually make it work much better. So everything I do, hopefully at this point, it's not as much of a mess as some of my past projects, but once I'm done, it'll be in Frederick's court to kind of look through, get the code perfected. Then there'll be alpha testing. There's also some other pieces of OS 6 that you guys haven't seen that's in development by other users, by other people contributing. Obviously Frederick, and there's a couple other people adding pieces. So, but OS 6 is still moving forward. It's just a lot of it's behind the scenes because there's so much coming. But I do have a sneak peek for you guys. Let me switch to the demo real quick again. Let's get you up. All right, and this is going to be a really short thing, but I've had it working for a little while. I just haven't shown it. Let's see. Let's go here. So I know this is something that, in particular, Megtooth Tom likes. So I did my own version. So in SA22C has a spoken battery level on his prop file. Now it uses what's called the talkie, which is basically it's the same voice that you get when you have the let's put this where you guys can see it. I can't see the camera. It's basically the version that is on SA22C's spoken battery is using the default voice of the board. My version that's coming actually uses WAV files, and what that means is you can actually have your own custom voice.
So this is thanks to Brian Connor. I have the voice for the battery level now using the exact same voice. That's the edit mode menu voice. So with my Saber off on my prop file, I also have the on-demand battery level style built in, but it'll now say the voltage.
Battery level 3.86 volts.
So I've got that style set up so it shows me that was yellow about 3/4 of the way, but it's going to say the actual voltage. And again, the voice here is actually WAV file. So if you wanted to have different voices, you just need to get those sound files made. The other nice thing about the WAV files is they actually take up a little bit less memory than the talkie version. So it saves a little bit of memory. But I'll just run it one more time so you can kind of hear the voice because Brian made the sound.
Battery level 3.93 volts.
So just a little something, but that's coming in my prop file. And I know particularly I know that's something Tom really likes. I do have a few other things, but they're not ready to show yet. So there's more coming. And then there's a big piece of edit mode that hopefully I finish very soon. Let's see. Let me switch back. Let me catch up with the chat. Cool. No, that's not what I wanted.
You guys don't need me. You need the screen. There we go. Pushing too many buttons. All right. So, yes. Yeah. So so it's not a talkie. It's actually WAV files in your font that it runs. So there'll be for those of you who haven't, obviously Brian is still here. Brian's done all the sound files for me throughout edit mode, and he's been a huge help. I think I've said this before, but I'm not a sound guy, and I originally my very first, before anybody saw anything, my first mock-ups and kind of proof of concepts on edit mode, I just took a little microphone, recorded my voice saying the prompt, and did it in Audacity. Terrible mic, terrible setup. But I put it on the Saber, and the effects that I was building did not, the sound just made it so bad. So I had to reach out, and Brian had already done some other stuff with like the volume menu and stuff. So I asked him to help me out, and he's been helping me all the way, and I've asked him for quite a bit, and he's been a really big help. So I do appreciate that. But the nice thing is with all the edit mode and the new capabilities that are going to come with OS 6 is all these menus will have this folder or this font. It's not even a font. All the prompts that Brian's made will be part of the package for OS 6 because you can't do anything without the prompts. But you can go and have your own custom sounds made, and I'm sure Brian already probably has ideas of his own different voices. Kim says Cortana from Halo. You could get a C-3PO in there. Hal. So you can get your own sounds now, and the prompts throughout the OS will be running those different WAV files. Now, obviously, you have to have a WAV file that says the correct statement, but the part of what's coming with edit mode is this actually really large new player that plays these menu prompts. And it lets us do a few other things that you guys haven't seen yet either, but the spoken battery level is going to be part of that. And it just uses separate files for each number, plus it says battery level, plus it says point, plus it says volts. So so you'd have a separate WAV file for each of those. But then the OS takes them, puts them into essentially a sentence, and that's how you get it. Funny story with that. Actually, when I initially was working on the very, very beginning of the what became edit mode, that was actually something Frederick said. He said, I have no desire for menus. He might have said it a little bit differently, but he said, you're welcome to try. And he just said, if you get it working, great. It wasn't something he wanted, but he also understood that there are people who do want it. And that it's come a long way. It's actually been probably a week or so since anybody's seen anything new, just because I'm still working on it. But it is coming, and it'll be optional too. That's the other piece of this puzzle, is that even within my prop file, edit mode, the entire menu system is going to be optional via define. So what that means is if you're a power user, if you're a user who's used to flashing your board and you're used to doing all the things already, and you don't have a need for that menu system, you don't have to run it. And there's a few other things tied to that. But you're going to be able to just do everything how you're used to. When I was coming up with it, I wanted something that, for the fine tune editing, so that, particularly like my son who's been in some of the videos, when he wants to change something, unfortunately nowadays he wants to change something to something that doesn't exist on the board. But in the past he'd want to change a font or a style, or a track or a color. Color change was kind of there, but it would still require the board to be reflashed. The idea with edit mode is none of that's necessary. And also thinking about installers like you, Megtooth, and others, who, people give you what they want and you put it on the board, but then they get it and something's a little bit different. And maybe they, rather than, I personally think everybody should learn how to just upload to Proffieboard. It's, maybe your first time it's a little overwhelming, but there's so much support, so much help. It's not that hard, but it's, I still think to get the full value out of Proffieboard, being able to update is really, really opens it up. But edit mode's going to be kind of that, for me, how I'm going at it is it's opening the door for more people who are maybe scared to try Proffieboard. And I don't know the other boards as well. I don't use them. But I do know that, one of the things that I do see people say is, well, it's hard for somebody brand new to get it and use it. Edit mode is meant to make that easier for everybody, so that you can go and be able to, get your Saber from somebody, obviously, hopefully a reputable installer like Megtooth. But now you can go and edit the stuff, so you can change your styles and your fonts. Nice thing about the font that, I think is awesome is that you just put the fonts on your SD card and the OS scans for them. So as long as they're formatted correctly, any font you want, you don't have to do anything anywhere else. You just put the font on the SD, go into edit font, and rotate and find it. And it scans for every viable font on the SD card. I don't know if other boards do that because I don't use them, but I thought that was cool. Same thing with tracks. Although Track Player kind of makes the single track obsolete, but same thing. It's actually scanning the entire SD card for all viable tracks. So you don't have to go and represent, you don't have to go tell the board what's there. It sees it already. And then obviously styles, colors, the gestures that just got added. The blade length was another big one. Actually, I was working with Frederick for a while on that one. So that was another thing, being able to, if you bought a new blade and you didn't know how many pixels were in it, instead of having to reflash the board, just turn on the edit blade length. It'll actually help you find the end of the blade, save it, and now you've got your new blade length. Or if you have a couple blades laying around, you want to pop in a short one, go in, edit the length, readjust everything, save it, good to go. Then you drop in your longer blade. Same thing, you go into the menu, rotate it up, save it, and now you got your new blade, all without flashing. Volume was there already. And then, oh yeah, the other stuff you guys don't know yet. So soon, the other stuff is coming. But it'll make it easier for people who are maybe worried. But I'm still going to always go back to, if you're getting a Proffieboard, maybe not the first day you get it, but take the time to learn how to do the updates, because hopefully with EffectSequence tonight, if everybody learns to build their own styles, that's still what makes Proffieboard the most fun. Everybody's got their own preference and everything, but if I think of something, if there's something I see somewhere on a show or something I come up with and I want to have my blade do it, I just jump in, build it, and it's there. I don't have to wait for somebody else. I don't have to be limited. There's technically no limit on what you can build. So that's, to me, what gives Proffieboard the advantage. But let's see, any more questions? Hey, Space, thanks for joining. Yeah, I'm glad to hear. Yeah, we've and it's come a long way since the last time I was talking to you. And OS 6 is going to change it even more. Yeah. He's. It's great that he enjoys them, but it's definitely every once in a while, you're like, oh, I don't want to I can't you just change the color yourself kind of thing. So it's going to be a nice thing. US goes live, battery low, future live. Yeah, and so I've said this in the past. All the prompts that are in all of the videos for edit mode plus the spoken battery level are provided by Brian Connor, and this particular one is going to be part of the OS 6 package. Now, we haven't figured the exact thing out if it's going to actually be. So you get the default fonts that Frederick has. If it'll be part of that, or if it'll just be something we link somewhere else. But that will be coming. It's actually important. You can't actually run edit mode if you don't have the vocal prompts because you don't know what's happening. So that's part of this puzzle, and Brian's been the one providing the sounds. But all the sounds in all the edit mode videos are going to be available with the OS for use. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, I mean, to me, every single update since, even 1.132 forever ago when the accent swings got added. Every time there's an update, it's a big jump. I think I've fielded a few questions in recently from just different people just being curious, but Profi users, especially if you guys have been around for a little while, we got a little spoiled because 3.9 came out. And then I want to say OS 4 was probably in beta right after 3.9 released. And OS 4 was not that old when OS 5 was already underway. So the advances from the 2.6 was around for a little while. Then we forked it with SA22C and I for color change. That kind of got, for me, that got the snowball rolling from my point of view with new features getting added. But then Proffieboard just rolled through 3.9, 4. I don't even remember what the 4s was. It feels like an eternity ago, but it wasn't. And then 5.7. And now 6 is taking a little bit longer than the other 3 updates previously, but there's that much more in it. And 6 has a lot of other stuff that is all on Frederick's side that nobody's seen anything about yet. So there's definitely a bunch on the way. Oh yeah, so 4.7. When OS 4 dropped, so I did alpha testing and beta testing on OS 4, and it was almost once it came live is when I stumbled and fell into battle mode. Is probably the easiest way to say it. And when I got battle mode actually functioning, I just couldn't hold on to it, and that's when I got up with Frederick to get 5 out. But he was already underway with 5 for a few other things that he was working on. His crazy zigzag blade and his the marble effect. So he already had all that stuff kind of in play. But then battle mode, when I got those working with the gestures and stuff, I jumped in, and that kind of rolled out quickly. So OS 4 was kind of here and gone for me. OS 5 has been around a little longer. OS 6 will be around. OS 6 has so much in it, I think it'll probably be a little while before anything, but I don't control that, so Frederick might have other ideas. But yeah, oh wow, it's getting towards the end. So I didn't get a ton of questions. I hope that I explained EffectSequence enough for everybody. I am going to get this paste bin put up I'm going to put it in the description of this video, and I'm going to put it on the open source and Proffieboard group in the post that I put up earlier where I showed the demo of it, and those are the places you'll be able to find it. And again, the one that I'm posting is going to be slightly different than the one I did in the demo. This is the one that we put together because I kind of grabbed that one quick. This is the one that actually ran in the video, so you have that exact one. But again, this is, even the library, and I saw it in the post earlier, the library is just examples of what can be done. It's if I took everything that I've built, I still say I'm maybe only doing less than 10% of what's possible just through everything I've done. There's that much out there for you guys to find and explore, enjoy. And Brian has been doing a lot. If you guys haven't seen his styles, he's been in most of these classes, or I don't even know if I call them classes, but listening to me ramble on, but he's learning. and he's been doing more and more. That faulty ignition style came out of his ignition redux that he had shown. I had seen a post about it being really large, and I just decided, hey, let me see if this works, and it worked. But so Brian, and I know Kim builds his own styles, and more people are getting into it. That's what got me really enjoying Proffi, is just being able to come up with creative new stuff. So hopefully some people are taking some stuff away from this, being able to go do their own things and enjoy it. But let's see. Smooth Jazz, let me see if I... So if this is a question for today, you still have to update your config. Or, I mean, there's a workaround. So if you have 14 presets with 14 other fonts on your SD, you could technically take the sounds from your new ones and drop them into the existing names and get away with it. If you want to add new fonts right now in OS 5.7, you do have to do it. You have to do it in your config, in each preset, and then upload to the board. What I was just talking about earlier about scanning the SD card for new fonts, that's OS 6, and that's part of edit mode. So that'll be coming soon, but it's not out yet, so nobody has access to that. So for right now, you'd have to either update your config and re-upload it, or like if you have font 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on your SD card and they're already assigned to presets, you could put new sound fonts into the same folder or copy over that, keep the folder name the same, and that would essentially change the sounds. But soon enough, the changing fonts will be nothing. Excuse me. There we go, Kim. Yeah, I mean, I've had some styles that I've definitely pushed on the flash memory for a lot of people. I'm actually been part of what I'm doing for edit mode and for OS 6 is actually going to go back and optimize even further. Some of it's because of new capabilities that are just coming around, and part of it is because I've learned, so that I'm able to do more with the board. So I mean, some of my older transitions had, like a bunch of them had some. A bunch of them in original 3.9 were really long, and I've since obviously come to learn how to do stuff a little bit more efficiently. Thanks, Kyber Tech Sabers. Yeah, definitely. The color change styles are a whole other beast, because they were the color change, EffectSequence, and there was another one. It's been so long, but those were just massive. But they were also built on a very different OS. The layers that came out in OS 4 actually made styles a lot shorter, because you're not doing all the nesting and stuff. But let's see. Oh yeah. There you go. You still got 80 bytes. So you can squeeze another color in there, Brian. So yeah, I'm usually at, most of my sabers are at 99% all the time. It's although when I first dropped the V2 plugin, I think I had one saber drop to 84%, and I've never been under like 90%, and I was like, okay, this is definitely working really well. But I filled it right back up. And then obviously way down the horizon, that V3 board, you're trying to get 99% of that V3 board. That's probably your hands are gonna get sore changing presets. But that's in the future. So thanks to everybody again for joining. I'll get this style posted up, and I will catch everybody soon. My schedule has been getting a little spotty. I'm gonna try for next Tuesday. If I'm not, if I don't post anything, just take that as I'm not able to get on. And I do have a bunch of stuff in the works, so hopefully some new stuff in the near future for you guys to peek at. But thanks everyone for joining. Hope you all have a good night, and I'll get this posted very shortly in the description and on open source and Proffieboard support group for you guys. So have a good one. Thanks.